Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 476 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I not only ask you to agree with me, I'm asking you to hear me out. I think what gets lost in this whole sports world is what is a determining factor for decisions that are made. At the end of the day, you hope that your star, you hope that your best player, you hope that one of your most important players' goal is to win a Super Bowl, win an NBA Finals, win a World Series, win a championship. That's what you hope. And deep down, I don't think any player plays the game that they play, plays the game that they claim to love, and not want to win a championship. But that's not always the number one factor. That's not always the most important thing. You see, one thing that I forget sometimes, one thing that people forget sometimes is this is these athletes' job. While we love watching people like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Steph Curry, LeBron James, basketball, football, whatever sport they play is their job. And when decisions are made, I always try to put myself in the mindset of the person making that decision. And I say to myself, would I have made that decision? And a lot of times, most people work to make money so you can pay bills and all this stuff. So if you'll go from job to job to job because they pay you more, it's always interesting to see people get so upset when athletes, and let me remind you that whatever sport they play is their job, athletes do the same thing. This is coming from, now, actually, let me first say I apologize for not having an episode on Wednesday. A unforeseen personal issue came up that I could not record, so I do apologize. I don't like missing days. I don't like missing episodes. So I apologize. I'm going to try to be better. Like I said, it was something that happened and I didn't see this coming. So, but I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone asked. And again, we're back. But where I'm starting this episode with is Juan Soto going from the New York Yankees to the New York Mets and signing the largest contract in sports history, North American at least, sports history, and signing a 15-year, $765 million contract. And with incentives and bonuses, it could exceed $800 million. This is where we are in sports. Let me excuse me. Let me first talk about the money aspect. I always say you always can determine your worth by what someone is willing to give you. Your worth, especially in the sports realm, is what you're able to negotiate and what your final payment is. So you can say, I'm worth $200 million, but if your contract says that you're only worth $140 million, then that's what you're worth. The Mets view Juan Soto as a $765 million player. Now, the Mets have a history, at least recent history, of paying everyone. This isn't me taking a shot at the Mets. This is just honest. There's a reason why for the last few years, the Mets have had the highest payroll or had one of the most expensive teams in baseball. Now the Mets did make it far in the playoff in the World Series in the playoffs this year. Obviously, they didn't make it to the. I think they made it to the NLCS. But when you pair a Juan Soto with a Pete Alonso and that's I will say this. One of the issues that the Mets have had and that people have had with the Mets is they've had the most expensive roster, and rightfully so. You pay really good players. It just hasn't equated to anything outside of last year when they made it, far in the playoffs. When you pay someone $765 million, you view them as a cornerstone player. You view them as a franchise player. As great as Pete Alonso is, he don't got that. Now, I'm also not saying that Juan Soto is the best player in sports history. Obviously, with him getting the biggest contract in North American sports history, I'm not saying he's the best player. But what I am saying is, this is where we are in sports. These athletes, and you can see it in basketball, football, and especially in the college realm, these athletes generate so much money, so much excitement for these teams that, honestly, I know it's going to sound crazy, but $765 million might be a discount compared to the money that he is going to generate for the team. And remember, Juan Soto was a huge part of the Yankees making it all the way to the World Series. Obviously, they didn't win, but he was a huge part. Honestly, he was one of, if not the best player in the playoffs. Him and Giancarlo Stanton was probably number 1 and 2 as far as the best players for the Yankees in the playoffs. So you have a team that almost made it to the World Series, now adding a team's best player, at least in the playoffs. There is high hopes for this move, especially when you talk about the Mets in general. They hope that Juan Soto is going to bring them to lands that they haven't been to since, 93, 94? But I started this off by saying there are some, I'm not going to say rules, but there are some things, especially in the sports world, that you hope does or does not happen. I don't think Yankees fans would be upset if Juan Soto went anywhere else but the Mets. Maybe the Red Sox, but the Mets and the Red Sox are probably the two places Yankees fans did not want to see Juan Soto go to. Reports are saying that the Yankees was offering Juan Soto 16 years, $760 million. So I get one less million, or no, not one less million. I get one less year, $5 more million, and I get a $75 million signing bonus. The decision's kind of made, brother. I started this episode by talking about work and job because you understand the frustration from Yankees fans. This is one of the best young players in baseball. He was, like I said, one of the most important pieces to this team making it to the World Series. He was one of the best players in the World Series, and then he dashes for the team that's in the next borough. It's going to be tough. I think it's still hard for me to look at what the Dodgers did last year and then the moves that they've made this offseason, getting Blake Snell. It's hard for me to see anyone beat the Dodgers, but if there is any team that could make some noise, it could be this Mets team with Juan Soto. I'm not saying that Juan Soto is an instant World Series person, but he is that good. Which actually, they don't pay $765 million to anybody. Because I know a lot of people is gonna say, well, it's the Mets. They'll pay anyone. They're not gonna pay anyone $765 million, bro. They understand how important Juan Soto is. Yankees fans and the Yankees in general know how important Juan Soto is. Hence why people are so upset with this move. Like I said, man, you're only as good as your worth is what you can negotiate. And he was able to negotiate this. If he hits all his incentives, this deal can exceed $800 million. Imagine that, bro. That's where we are in sports. That's where we are money wise, bro. You can justify giving somebody $765 million. Congratulations to Juan Soto. I also do want to point out that the only World Series that he's won has been with the Washington Nationals. But the Mets are going to be one of the best teams in base. Should be. When you look at the payroll, when you look at the roster, now adding somebody as vital and as good as Juan Soto, they should be one of the best teams in baseball. We're just going to have to see. Because trust and believe, one thing that people don't, I'm not going to say people don't like to, or people don't understand. One thing that people forget is you're expected, and you hope that you're better than what you do the previous season. And with the team almost making the World Series, you're hoping that adding someone that just made the World Series would put you over the top. So this move and a 15-year contract is crazy. I guess. I guess I understand it, especially in baseball, because baseball is not the most physical sport. But I'm like, you never know what happens in 15 years. You don't know what's happened year to year. And now, while I'm not saying that contracts should be yearly or year-to-year basis, I do think that 15 years is a tad bit. In 15 years, I'll be 45. Think about that. Crazy. But congratulations to the Mets and Juan Soto for cashing in on the biggest deal in sports history from one player. So, shouts out to you. I want to talk about what we saw on Thursday Night Football. And there's a quote that keeps ringing in my head. Emmanuel Acho said it. Shouts out to Emmanuel Acho. Shouts out to The Factory. That's their show on FS1. Emmanuel Acho said it, and it keeps ringing in my head. That saying is, the 49ers deserved this season. Now I'm trying to expect, like, what? It keeps ringing in my head because he is absolutely right, but maybe not in the way that it sounds. That's why it's been buzzing, because it's like, that, I don't know, that team, but yeah, I get it. We've talked ad nauseum about going to the Super Bowl, going to the NFC Championship. When you do that multiple times, we talked about how it could play a part on the body, how you play more games than most teams, how when your Super Bowl window is open, you have to attack it because you may not get it again. We've talked about all that. So what do I think Emmanuel Acho means when he says the 49ers deserved this season? This has been one of the loudest seasons for a team. both coming into the season and during the season that I've experienced in a while. That we as a fan, as football fans have experienced in a while. This is such a multifaceted blame pie that you can hand out. There's not one person that doesn't deserve some type of blame for what we've seen for the 49ers. I haven't said it, so I'll say it now. The Rams beat the 49ers 12-6. This was a game where we did not see a touchdown at all from either team. I think first one of the season. This is not the first time a team won while not scoring a touchdown, but this, I think, is the first time this season that both teams didn't score in a touchdown. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The only thing that you can do is control the controllables. You can control how you play. Well, no, you can't control injuries, but you can control how you play. Yes, I think that the injuries played a major part of this 49ers team probably not making the playoff this year. When your entire team is decimated with injuries, that plays a huge part. When your best players, from Christian McCaffrey out for the season, from Brandon Ayuk out for the season, George Kittle missing time, Deebo Samuel missing time, Brock Purdy even missing time. When all that happens, especially with Dre Greenlaw missing most of the season, he did come back for Thursday Night Football, but he missed most of the season recovering and he sped his recovery up trying to get back after tearing his ACL, I believe, in the Super Bowl. So when all that happens, obviously you can't control injury. You can try to prepare yourself not to get injured, and I'm not saying that none of these players prepared wrong. But no, you can't control injury, but what you can control is what you do when you play. And while there have been times when Brock Purdy has been good, there have been more times when he's been average to below average. Deebo Samuel, when he has played, has been terrible this season. Hell, there's soundbite going around about just how bad he's played. Man, it's not me. It's nothing bad. I just haven't got the ball. Then when you see him drop a sure touchdown on Thursday Night Football, they went right through his hands. When you have one of the worst defenses in football, which is crazy, a team that has as many possible future Hall of Famers on the defensive side of the ball, to be as bad as you are defensively, outside of the injuries, the 49ers did a horrible job controlling the controllables. I didn't mention Deebo getting into it with the kick holder. I didn't mention the Brandon Ayuk deal or the fiasco that happened this offseason. Not fiasco. The holdout that happened this offseason. On Thursday night, you saw two very desperate teams. You saw two very desperate teams. Obviously desperate to make the playoffs. But one team didn't feel fractured. One team didn't have a extremely loud off. Mind you, both the Rams and the 49ers have dealt with a myriad of injuries this year. Both of them. Hell, most of the season, the Rams didn't have their top 2 wide receivers. A lot of this season, the Rams didn't have any of their starting offensive line. For majority of the season, the Rams was just picking and playing when we talk about defensive players because people were just getting hurt game after game after game, just like the 49ers. But even it was a bad game. Let's not get it twisted. This was a bad game. But even looking at both of these teams, it just felt different. One felt like they both felt desperate. But one didn't look fractured. One didn't feel fractured. One didn't have the weight of every little mistake on their shoulder. One team, there was an expectation that they were going to, I think the 49ers were favored to make the Super Bowl again, at least in the NFC. And if I'm not mistaken, they were favored to win the Super Bowl going into the season. One team wasn't. While every team wants to make it, while every team wants to make the playoffs, there was expectation that this 49ers team was going to win it all, seeing as though they were an overtime kick away or overtime touchdown away from winning it last year. When I say the Super Bowl window is closed for the 49ers, it's not just because of the injuries. It's not just because players are getting older. This is a concoction that has been brewing every single time they get close or they get to the finish line and they ultimately don't make it. They ultimately don't finish. You saw a fractured team. I'm not saying fractured internally, but you saw a team that this high vaulted 49. Remember, the 49ers team was one of the highest scoring teams in football last year. They scored 6 points against a team that is still riddled with injury. I understand it's a divisional game, but still. I'm not saying, you would be foolish, in my opinion, to think that Kyle Shanahan needs to go or the coaching staff needs to go. Like, I don't think one bad season, I don't think that deserves getting fired. But I would look really hard at some of these. Maybe Dre Greenlaw coming back will change things. We keep hearing, and you can see it, that he is the heart of the team. He is their leader. And maybe him not being there most, if not all of the season, was the issue, maybe. Maybe he is the culture change or the culture shock, I guess, that the 49ers needed. But in all intents and purposes, this was a season to forget. There have been two teams this season that had such high hopes, but you should have seen where they're at now coming, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals and the 49ers. I've said this, bro, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've said this. Name me the team that had a loud offseason in a negative way that had success in the regular season or had success that following season. Both of these teams probably had the loudest offseason. The 49ers with Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and all that. And then the Cincinnati Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson, I think. And there's no coincidence that the 49ers is it's not mathematically done, but I think they have a less than 10% chance of, maybe 11% chance of making the playoffs. And the Cincinnati Bengals, while they have an easier schedule and I think they still have a chance, a higher chance than the 49ers, they would have to have major slippage from either the Steelers or the Ravens. And Steelers have a tough schedule, but the Ravens have an easier schedule to end the season. Like Emmanuel Acho said, man, the 49ers earned this season. They were unable to effectively control the controllables. So now when you look on Thursday Night Football against a divisional opponent, they're only able to muster up 6 points. Mind you, Brock Purdy played. Brandon Ayuk played. George Kittle played. Jawan Jennings played. While, yes, you don't have Brandon Ayuk. I said Brandon Ayuk. I meant Deebo Samuel. I'm sorry. You didn't have Daniel or Brock. You didn't have Brandon Ayuk. You didn't have Christian McCaffrey. Both very important pieces, but you still have at least 4 really good players to great players play. Oh, you also had Nick Bosa play. You also had Fred Warner play. Like I said, Dre Greenlaw came back. And it didn't matter one bit. That has been the 49er season in a nutshell. Like Emmanuel Acho said, they have earned this season. Not because of the injuries. I'm not going to blame injury. I'm not going to put injury on anyone. You can't foresee injury. But they did a terrible job at controlling the controllables. And if you want actually any proof of what I'm talking about, let's talk about the Rams. Because the Rams have done a great job at controlling the controllables. Again, the Rams have dealt with the same, to maybe even more, injuries than the 49ers have. I don't think the Rams are perfect. I don't think the Rams are Super Bowl contenders. I mean, Matthew Stafford on Thursday Night Football had 160 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyron Williams did rush for 108 yards, but still. I think this could be, with how good this offense is, with Puka. Cooper Kupp did nothing last night. He was just out there running laps. No targets, no catches, and they still won. Puka Nacua only had 7 receptions for 97 yards, and they still won. So, I don't know I think that those are one of those teams that you don't want to see. Just like I just talked about the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but if they do, that's not a team that you want to see just because of how potent that offense can be. What the Rams have done is they have controlled what they can control. While no, you can't control injuries, you can control how hard we play. You can control the narratives that come out of, the locker room. You can control me getting my body together. You know what I'm saying? I've heard nothing but story after story after story after dysfunction after dysfunction after dysfunction when talking about the 49ers. Wow, the Rams have dealt with almost similar things as far as injury-wise. You haven't heard nearly as much. Now, I will also admit that the expectations for the Rams weren't the same coming into the season as the 49ers. So it's the noise is not going to be as loud for the Rams as it's going to be for the 49ers because again, the 49ers had Super Bowl. They were Super Bowl favorites. The Rams were not that. But when you look up a team that saw Hunter Long, that saw Kobe Parkinson, and DeMarcus Robinson combined have two receptions. They win. I don't know if any of these teams are good for fantasy, but both of these teams was the perfect example of how to handle adversity throughout the season. One team is now actually favored. Obviously, the Seahawks is the best team in this division right now, but at least record-wise. But right now, one team in the Rams is now favored to win the NFC West. The other team, the one that was favored to win the Super Bowl coming to the season, now I think has 11% chance of making the playoffs. Congratulations to the Rams for beating the 49ers 12-6 on Thursday Night Football. Yo, you know what I realized about Thursday? Quick side note. You know what I realized about Thursday Night Football, at least this past, year? It's never an in-between. You're never going to have a okay game. It's either going to be boring and awful or hella exciting. That's just, there's no in between. Unfortunately, you get Raven, like it's never in between. It's always great or horrible. This was a horrible game. The weather wasn't in the favor. The weather wasn't in the favor of. It was raining. There was no touch. It was just boring. But someone had to win it, and that was the Rams. It's also interesting that, man, the Rams just won a game where they had to score 40-plus points. I think they scored 44. They scored 44 points, I believe, to beat a team that a lot of people think could be the best team in the AFC, and that is the Bills and Josh Allen, who's the front runner for the MVP right now. And then they turn around and beat the team that people had as the Super Bowl favorites coming into the season as the 49ers. Both games was sloppy. Well, no, that's a lie. This game was sloppy. The Bills game, it was a shootout. Shouts out to the Rams, man. Another story coming out of this game that I had to discuss, and I had to make it its own topic, is Devondre. Look, how do I approach this? Devondre Campbell left. He left. He left. I think it was the middle of the third quarter. He walked. He said, I don't want to play anymore. I'm not playing today." And he left. There are titles in sports that you never want to have. One of them is dirty. You never really want to be known as a dirty player. There are players that have the reputation of being a dirty player, but I don't think you go into a sport hoping to get that title of dirty player. Quitter is another one. I don't think that you want to be considered a quitter. one thing that, for people that's never played a team sport, one thing that I can say for sure is maybe it's the amount of time that you spend with your teammates. Maybe it's the amount of practice that you put in. Maybe it's the amount of wear and tear that you put in your body for the ultimate goal. And you see your brother or sister or teammate put in that same amount, if not more work. But in team sports, your mind is shaped to, or it is registered in your mind that I'm going to give it all for my teammates. In fact, more athletes probably care more about doing it for their teammates instead of doing it for themselves. That's one of the reasons why we say the ultimate team sport, because as an athlete, you've put it in your brain to give more for somebody else than yourself for the ultimate goal. And one thing that is extremely hard, sometimes never able to come back from, is being labeled a quitter. Because these players know how much work it takes to get to the mountaintop. And you're also playing a sport, talking about football, that one hit can change the trajectory of your life. And these athletes are putting their bodies on the line for somebody else. So when Devondre Campbell, who has had he was an all-pro, he was a great player in Green Bay. When you, at that moment, pick yourself over the team, that's why you're hearing someone like Tre'Davious Ward come out and say that that's sucker stuff and he's probably gonna get cut, or that's, I don't rock with that. Someone like George Kittle, who doesn't even play the same side of the ball as Devondre Campbell, goes, I don't want somebody around me that selfish. The last label that you want to be considered in a locker room, on a team, is a quitter. Rest in peace. That's why Vontae Davis, when he retired halfway through the game, yeah, you're not going to play again. And I think there's a difference between quitting. Let me say this, actually. Now that I'm listening to myself say that, I don't think, no. Think about it, though. There's a reason why Antonio Brown has never touched the NFL field again after what he did with, leaving mid-game for the Bucks, taking his shirt off. It was against the Jets, I believe. That's why he's never played a down again. I'm not saying that this is it for Devondre Campbell. But what I'm saying is his reputation is forever changed. And if you don't believe me, look at Antonio Brown. When you think of Antonio Brown, you don't really think of how if Antonio Brown, if you just take what he did on the field in Pittsburgh, he's a surefire Hall of Famer. He's actually one of the greatest wide receivers we've ever seen. But every time you talk about Antonio Brown, the first or second thing that comes up is always, well, remember what happened in in Tampa Bay. Once you get that quitter label on you, it's damn near impossible to get off. Now, I don't know what was going through Devondre Campbell's head. There are speculations that he was upset with the fact that he was there for the whole season playing, and they pretty much told him move aside. We need, or they pretty much told him Devondre Campbell, or not Devondre, Dre Greenlaw's back. You're not going to get as many minutes, even though Dre Greenlaw is a captain on the team. Which, and even in that point, I don't understand. I guess you think, well, I've been vital to this team. I've played all season. How are you just going to move me aside for someone that hasn't been there? I understand the sentiment, but even with you there, the team was 6-7 going into this game. Your age has shown in the wear and tear in your body has shown more than your highlights this year when you're playing for the 49ers. And that's no offense to him. That's just honest. And Dre Greenlaw is a captain on this team. We just talked about how he was the emotional leader. Everyone on this team talks about how important and how he is the emotional leader. So I don't know how you thought that. I guess I understand thinking, well, I've been here all season, but you're also a player that they picked up from free agency on a 1-year deal. So you essentially weren't on a team before they got you. So I don't know how you thought. You don't have a C. In fact, I don't think you have a C on your shoulder. I don't know, man. I don't think this is the end for Devondre Campbell. I don't think it's the end for him. There's always going to be a team that needs a linebacker. There's always going to be a team that thinks that they're a piece away. Now, I will say that people underestimate how small of a fraternity sports really is. Like, people forget just how many people have played in the NFL in its existence. It hasn't been a lot when you talk about the grand scheme of the world. And there's a reason why you see and hear a lot of former NFL players so adamant and upset and frustrated with Devondre Campbell. So how do you think current players are feeling? Again, I'm not saying that is it. I think it would be it would it's definitely over with San Francisco for him. Maybe that did go through his head. Maybe he knew he was going to get cut. No, like maybe he knew, this when I do this I'm getting cut. Maybe that was his plan. Maybe, I don't know. But while I do think he's probably going to get another shot somewhere, he will always be labeled a quitter. That's just it. Yeah, we just saw this last 2 weeks ago with Devontae, what's his last name? Johnson and the Ravens. I think the only reason why he is still there is because they legit need a wide receiver, and they probably can't get anything for him. The trade, no trades anymore. So what's the point of releasing him when they need a wide receiver? So that's probably the only reason why he's still on the team, because they legit need him. There's not a wide receiver on the market right now that they can get that can give you the same production, even though he hasn't really given them any production, give them the same production that Deontay Johnson can give them. But trust me, when you, and this is the same thing in basketball too, when your coach tells you to sub in, you're like, nah, I'm good. That forever fractures your relationship with the coach. That forever fractures your relationship with your teammates, especially if you lose. So I don't know where Devondre Campbell's going to end up, but I for damn sure knows that he now has the label of quitter on him. And I don't know if he'll be able to get that. I don't think he'll ever be able to get that off. I said this, last episode or 2 episodes ago? Every decision has consequences. And while he may not care that being cut is a consequence, I think the bigger consequence in this is now you're considered a quitter. And for a lot of teams, they would never touch that. They're never going to touch a player that has quitter. Because again, I know he retired, but Vondre did. I don't know how many. Antonio Brown has never touched an NFL field after what he did in Tampa Bay. Deontay Johnson, he's still there, but the only thing I hear now is, well, he didn't go in. So, but again, man, that's just the season. That's yet another ugly page in a book that has been less than stellar for the 49ers this year. So, but with Thursday Night Football, we have the start of the new week, and obviously we have week 15. So I'm going to give my predictions. You have Kansas City at Cleveland. I'm starting to realize Jameis Winston, man, is probably the most likable player in football. But he's also one of, if not the most flawed quarterback in football. And it's hard to root against him because he just feels like even though it kind of feels like a facade what he does, everyone says that is the real Jameis Winston. But he still is high on turnovers, and the Kansas City Chiefs just continue to win. And I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to beat the Cleveland Browns. The Kansas City Chiefs defense isn't as great as it's been, but Jameis Winston is going to give you a couple opportunities to intercept the ball. That's just what he does. And the question is, are they just going to take those opportunities, which I think they will. So I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. I just don't think, as great as much people want to talk and love Jameis Winston, I just don't think he's good enough to hand, which is crazy because he beat the Ravens, but then again, the Ravens did drop 101 interceptions opportunities that game. So I got the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Cleveland Browns. Cincinnati at Tennessee. I have Cincinnati. Cincinnati's defense is god-awful, but their offense, I mean, there's a reason. Actually, now I think about it, they should have lost if it wasn't for that punt situation. They should have lost to the Cowboys, but they didn't. I'm going to go with Cincinnati. Cincinnati's playing for more. They're a better offense. I don't have any trust in Will Levis, like, at all. And I agree with, I don't remember who said it, but I've been saying it. If Cincinnati was winning, Joe Burrow would be the MVP by a wide margin. They're just not. So, with that being said, I have Cincinnati beating Tennessee. Washington at the Saints. Derek Carr's not playing. Spencer Rattler's not playing. I don't remember the dude's name that's playing, but he ain't Jaden Daniels. I think Washington. They're coming off a bye week. Now that you see that the Rams are kind of on their tail, Washington right now occupies the last spot or last wild card spot. I think they understand, these games are kind of getting serious. I'm or not getting serious. We need to win these games. I think they're going to beat the Saints. When you don't have your starting or backup quarterback, and Taysom Hill is out for the season, yeah, no, I got Washington winning. I understand that this is the Chase Young game, but yeah, Washington should win. Baltimore at Giants. I've said this almost all year. The Giants are the worst team in football, and it looks like Tommy DeVito might be starting against. Look, I understand the Ravens defense hasn't been good. It's been better these last 2-3 weeks, but or last 2-3 games. I know they had a bye week last week. There's no way in heaven and hell I think that the Giants are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. So I have the Ravens winning. Dallas at Carolina. I'm going to go with Carolina. I think that Bryce Young has played much better. This team has played much better. Overall, this defense has played much better. And if it wasn't for Leggett dropping a surefire touchdown, they would have beat the best team in the NFC right now in the Eagles. And I think that this team is, especially on a defense the Cowboys isn't that good. So, or they're not good really at all. I'm going to go with the Carolina Panthers beating the Cowboys. New York at Jacksonville. The Jets at Jacksonville. The only reason why I'm going with the Jets is because even though he's had a bad season, I trust Aaron Rodgers and this team more than I trust Mac Jones and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I could be wrong, obviously. I mean, the way that the Jets have lost, but Mac Jones is not good, so I'm gonna go with the Jets. Miami at Houston. I think this is a big game, obviously, for Miami trying to make the playoffs, and for Houston, you don't want to slip in the standings. Right now, they're the 4th spot. It's in a dome. I know it's at NRG Stadium, but it's in a dome. And Miami's defense has played much better. I'm going to go with Miami beating Houston. I know Houston has a tough stretch because they got Christmas against the Ravens, and now they're playing Miami, and Miami's playing much better. I'm going to go with Miami. I'm going to go with Miami beating Houston. Colts at Denver. I got the Broncos. The Broncos are just a better team. Bo Nix is in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I still think Jaden Daniels is number 1, but this defense has obviously been incredible, and Denver is fighting for a playoff spot. They're in one of the wild card. I think they're the 6th spot or 7th spot. Yeah, I'm going to go with Denver. Game of the week, in my opinion, Buffalo at Detroit. I think that you're really going to see just where the Detroit Lions are because you're going against a team that you could very well see in the Super Bowl. As great as Josh Allen was last week, he was probably the best player in football. They still lost because there are holes in this team, especially defensively, that the greatness of Josh Allen may not be able to overcome. Offensively as well, I understand Dalton Kincaid didn't play and Amari Cooper didn't play, and I think they are going to play this game. But this Detroit Lions team is really about to put this defense to the test, and vice versa. Josh Allen, he's going to put the Detroit Lions defense to the test. Just because Detroit's at home, I'm going to go with Detroit. I think that Dan Campbell is a great coach, and the things that him and Ben Johnson are going to be able to scheme up against the Buffalo defense that's kind of reeling right now. I'm going to go Detroit. Pittsburgh at Philly. This is a huge game, and the only reason we've heard the talk this week with AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. Here's the thing. I know people are gonna call me a hater. I know it, but I still have my doubts about this Pittsburgh offense. George Pickens doesn't look like he's playing. I know they scored 40 plus or 44, I believe, against the Cincinnati Bengals. But the Cincinnati Bengals defense is horrible outside of Trey Hendrickson. I don't know if they'll be able to do that against this. But then again, Jalen Hurts is. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh. I don't think the offense has been humming like it. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles offense has been humming like it should. Pittsburgh is really good, especially with Highsmith back. Pittsburgh is really good at stopping the run, and I think that they're going to be able to contain, or they're going to try their hardest to contain Saquon Barkley. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is. You're going to know if this is a Super Bowl caliber team by this game. So, New England at Arizona. I got Arizona. New England is not good. Drake May is good. This team's not good at all. I got Arizona. Tampa Bay at Chargers. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. The Chargers are, Justin Herbert is dealing with injuries. This team, the whole team is dealing with injuries. I don't know if Ladd McConkey's going to play, who is their best wide receiver. I don't know. And you're going up against a really good team, a really good defense, a team that's trying to hold on to the NFC South. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Green Bay Packers at Seattle, Sunday Night Football. I'm going to go with, you're playing in Seattle. I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. I think defensively, the Green Bay Packers, they're just better than Seattle. No, see, that's the thing about Seattle. They're such an up and down roller coaster. I don't know, because with all the talent they have, they can be incredible. Then they can come out and just play god awful. So I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers. We have a doubleheader on Monday Night Football. We have Chicago at Minnesota. I'm going to go with Minnesota. I think Minnesota, especially defensively, going up against this young team, and Caleb Williams looked he looked like the bad Caleb Williams that we've seen most of this season. He looked like that last week against the 49ers. And the Minnesota defense is much better. I got Minnesota. And then you got Atlanta at Raiders. The Raiders are one of the worst teams in football. Not the worst, but one of the worst teams. And Atlanta, even though they've been losing, and I think that right now Kirk Cousins is on a streak with like 8 interceptions and 0 touchdowns. Atlanta needs to win this game, and I think that they're going to be desperate. So I'm going to go with Atlanta, but I don't have any faith because Kirk Cousins is in his slump right now. So those are my week 15 predictions. Let me know what you think. I want to talk on this briefly because it happened last week, and everyone in the college football playoffs have talked about it. It's the playoffs. The teams have been announced. The number 1 seed is Oregon, the only undefeated team in the playoffs. The top 4 teams is Oregon, Georgia, Boise, and Arizona State. Everyone at nauseum has talked about it. I have my gripes, obviously. I think I don't understand. I understand this is a first-year thing. This is obviously not the first year for the playoffs, but it is the first year for the whole overall 12 seeds. I understand that there's going to be bumps and bruises. And I understand that you're going to get some things right and some things wrong. That's just obvious. But here's my thing. Why not, if you're going to model after something, why not model it to the closest thing that resembles you? My thing is, Why is the college football playoffs modeling a basketball thing? Why is the college football playoffs modeling basketball, college, and NBA? Like, why are they doing that? Why are you modeling a March Madness style thing? It doesn't make sense. Why not reseed after like the NFL? Why not reseed, or the NBA? What I'm saying is, they've talked about ad nauseum this week, but I feel the same way. The team that got the worst end of the stick with this college football playoffs is Oregon, the best team in the country. There has to be some type of reward system, right? When you let's talk about different sports. The NFL. When you're the number one seed in whatever conference you're in, you not only get a bye, but they reseed. So you're playing the lowest seed from whoever's in the wild card. Like, you're playing the lowest seed. So let's say the 5 beat the 4. Let's say the 7 beats the 6. You're playing the 7th seed. That is your reward for being the best team in the regular season. Not only are you getting a bye, but you're getting an easier path, at least to the conference championship. In the NBA, the 8th seed or the 1 seed plays the 8th seed. That's just how it is. You play the worst team that made the playoffs by seeding. Why does Oregon have to play, if they do win the national championship, right? They have to play the teams that had, going into the season, had the highest percentages to make and win the college football playoffs. So they'll have to play the winner of Ohio State, who they already played and won by 1 point at home. Tennessee, they'll have to play the winner of either Texas, Clemson, or Arizona State. Then they'll have to play Georgia or Penn State or Notre Dame. It just doesn't make sense. Why? It's flawed. I have no problem with SMU making it. I think SMU deserved to make it over a 3-win or a 3-loss Georgia or Alabama or 2-loss Alabama team. Miami, they lost too many times. I have no problem with that. My issue is the seeding. There's no way, shape, or form that Penn State, who is playing, Penn State has a much easier road in there. And they just lost Oregon in the Pac-10 in the Big Ten championship. There's no reason why Oregon should have the hardest road to the college football playoffs, and not only are they the 1 seed, they're the only team in this playoff that is undefeated. It's like, what's the point? So what I'm saying is this: now you're playing if this doesn't get retooled or changed, you're playing with fire, because now if I'm Oregon, right, and I think Oregon has the number 1 recruiting class coming in. If I'm Oregon, say Oregon loses to Ohio State. Next year comes around and the same situation happens. Why am I going to try to shoot for the number 1 seed when I can get the 3 seed and have to play either the winner of the 11 or the 6? Like, what? There should not. Or if I'm Oregon, why would I care about the Big Ten championship? Why would I not lose it so then I can now be the 6th seed? So now my road, hypothetically speaking, is I would have to play SMU, then I'd have to play Boise State, who I already beat, then I'd have to play Georgia. Like, make it make sense. So what you're going to see is teams. I know you don't want to play with the sports guys like that, but you're going to get teams that probably intentionally trying to lose for seeding. A team that has a 99% chance, even with the loss, to make the playoffs. Now, why would I want to be a 1 seed if I got to go up against Tennessee or Ohio State? And then I'll have to go and play Texas or Clemson. Then I'd have to go and play Georgia or Notre Dame in the national championship or Penn State. That's all I'm saying. It's like you're playing with fire. And trust me, I know the teams aren't going to do that. Watch. You're going to look and say, how the hell did they lose? And then you're going to look, oh, well, seeding-wise, when this comes out, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense. I'd much rather be Boise State right now at the 3 seed than Oregon at the 1. That's crazy. That's all I'm saying. But congratulations to all the teams. I think Oregon's going to win the national championship. I would like Oregon to win the national championship. They have demonstrated to be the best team, but we'll see. So, and I wanted to congratulate all the Heisman finalists. I know the Heisman is awarded, tonight? You have Dylan Gabriel from Oregon, Travis Hunter from Colorado, Ashton Genty from Boise State, and Cam Ward for Miami. I think Cam. So you can just take out. This is a 2-man race. As much as I love Dylan Gabriel, he's not going to win it. As much as I love Cam Ward, he's not going to win either. He has too many losses. This is really it's really what you value. So this is a 2-man race, and it's been projected to be a 2-man race pretty much between Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. Now, both of these players exude dominance in their position. The difference is Travis Hunter plays both sides of the ball. So do you value importance to both sides of the ball? Because while he was named the best, even though he was named the best wide receiver, he doesn't have the numbers to back up being the best wide receiver outside the fact that he plays defense, and he's not the best corner, but he also plays offense. So it's like, he is a once in a generational player as far as being able to play both sides of the ball so effectively. I think he won the Big 12 Player of the Year, rightfully so. But then you have Ashton Genty, who is by far the best running back in football. Like, it's not even close. Not even close. He's over 2,000 yards. He shattered Boise State's rushing record. And you can argue that importance to a team, there's nobody more important than Ashton Genty to the Boise. You know what's funny? Die-hard college, people that watch college football religiously can't name you another player on Boise State's team. And they're the 3 seed. That's no offense to them. That just shows you the importance of Ashton Genty. If you ask me, the Heisman is essentially the MVP of college football. And I always look at importance and value to team while also looking at where they landed. And I love Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter is going to be an incredible pro. I think that Travis Hunter is the most important player for Colorado, even with Shedeur Sanders. But I'm looking at importance to the team. And I'm looking, again, I know Colorado was projected to be like 11th in the Big 12 and essentially is playing in a bowl, and for a good portion of the season had their playoff hopes in their hands until they lost to Kentucky. No, Kansas. They lost to Kansas. See, I don't. I would give it to Ashton Genty. As much as I love Travis Hunter, and I'm not upset if Travis Hunter wins it, but Boise State wouldn't even be close to the college football playoff. I don't even think Boise State would win or would be in a bowl game if it wasn't for Ashton Genty. And while you also have Shedeur Sanders, who's going to be a top 5, maybe even number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, Boise has none of that outside of Ashton Genty, and they're in the college football playoffs as a 3 seed. So when I look at importance and I look at just impact to the team, I think Ashton Genty has a bigger impact for his team that is playing in a college football playoffs than Travis Hunter that will be in a bowl game. Shouts out to them. But and again, I'm not upset if Travis Hunter wins. I'd be happy for him. But I do think that if I was a voter for the Heisman, I'd vote Ashton Genty. So, but congratulations to everyone. Dillon Gabriel, Cam Ward, and just know Cam Ward has too many losses, and he looked bad in those losses. And Dillon Gabriel, I think that when they look at the success of Oregon, they don't look at just from him, even though that he did, I think, have the most passing touchdowns in FCS history. I think they look at the total team. When they look at Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty, they kind of look at the success for their teams as them. And for Dillon, I think it's just the Oregon is just a great team. Like you have Tez Johnson, you have the players that they have. Yeah. Congratulations to all the finalists, though. There are a couple players. We're moving forward. First of all, there are a couple players that their name is synonymous with stuff. Some good, some bad, right? As unfortunate as it is, Charles Barkley will always be, not always, but Charles Barkley has been the face of great players to never win a championship. There are multiple players. I mean, John Stockton. I don't want to say the other dude's name. John Stockton, Carmelo Anthony. There's been many great players to be great, just never win a championship. And Charles Barkley seems to be the poster child for that. As unfortunate as it's going to be, I think that Charles Barkley is going to pass the torch to Chris Paul. I don't think Chris Paul is ever going to win a championship. And I think when we talk about the greatness of Chris Paul, I think that that's always going to be said. But if we put championships aside, I think Chris Paul is easily a top 5 point guard to ever play the game of basketball. Chris Paul, I think on Sunday, became second all time in assist in NBA history, passing Jason Kidd. So I think the only person that has more assists than him is John Stockton. Chris Paul has the resume. He has He has the numbers to be considered a top 5 point guard of all time. When you talk about his impact, everywhere he goes, the team gets better. While they don't win a championship, everywhere he goes, the team gets better. Hell, you're even seeing it now. I understand they have Victor Wembanyama, but look at where the Spurs were last year to where they are now. Mind you, the Spurs are also still dealing with the health issues of Greg Popovich. Chris Paul forgave. How do I say this? Damn it. Chris Paul, I think, gave up the pursuit to be a champion in trying to be a leader to a young team. Yo, Chris Paul right now is 12,092. 12,092 assists. For a player as short as he is, as fiery as he is, I think people will talk. One of the reasons why Charles Barkley is the face of players to be great but never win a championship is because of how great he was. When he was playing, when he was at his apex, there was only maybe one person that was better than him, and that is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Charles Barkley, I understand, the right now, probably this new age knows him for what he does on TNT and inside the NBA, and rightfully so. But he was one of the greatest basketball players to ever walk the face of this earth. It's just he was playing in an era, and he was playing against arguably the greatest player to ever walk the face of this earth. So that's just going to be tough. Chris Paul, in my opinion, should go down as one of the greatest point guards to ever play, one of the greatest players to ever play. I think he's honestly, if you ask me, he's number 3. I have Steph at number 1, Magic Johnson at number 2, and I have Chris Paul at number 3. Just how important he is to a team. But I do think that he will also go down as, I think Charles Barkley will give him the mantle of players, the poster child for great, but never won a championship. But shout out to Chris Paul for passing Jason Kidd and being second all time in assist. Shouts out to you. In NBA history. Shouts out to you. Lastly, before we go, you had the unpopular topic of the day, and honestly, this is a congratulations as well. When I think of players, I also, for a lot of players, I also think of, what's the word? I also think of brands. Like, obviously, Jordan is synonymous with Jordan. LeBron is synonymous with Nike. Steph is synonymous with Under Armour. And now Curry brand. Hell, Tiger Woods is synonymous with Nike. When I think of Lewis Hamilton, I always think of Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton is arguably one of, if not the greatest F1 racer. Now, let me also, I don't know much about F1, which I think also adds credence to what I'm saying. I don't know. It's kind of for a while, Lewis Hamilton kind of had that Tiger Woods thing. And I'm not saying Lewis Hamilton is bigger than Tiger Woods or was ever bigger than Tiger Woods. But what I'm saying is Tiger Woods, for a good portion, made it okay, made it cool to care about golf because he was playing it. Tiger Woods would make you stop on a Sunday after church and watch him in his red shirt try to win a Masters. People cared, especially people of the African American community, because there wasn't a lot of golf in our cities. It made you follow a sport that you cared about. Same as tennis and those Williams sisters, Serena and Venus. I didn't care. You didn't know any other tennis players outside of Serena and Venus. Now you have people like Coco Gauff. You have Naomi Osaka. Lewis Hamilton is like that for F1. I understand Max Verstappen is pretty good, but Lewis Hamilton is the guy that you attach yourself to. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that's F1. And I don't think he's retiring, but I think he raced his last match with Mercedes. Like I said, Tiger Woods, Nike. LeBron, Nike. Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes. And now that partnership is over, I'm very interested to see what happens next. Does he just leave in general? Like, what happens? But I will say that he is easily for black people. I'll just keep it stacked with you. For black people, he is the easiest, most popular, and the face of F1. And if him leaving Mercedes means it's over, then hey, he will go down as one of the greatest. So shouts out to Lewis Hamilton. And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Popular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. If you like the content, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, subscribe. It means a lot. Also, from my DSP listeners, that's either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs and wherever you're listening to me. If you like the content, please subscribe, please follow. It means so much to me. Also, please follow the socials. Follow Instagram, follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily, whether it's reels, stories, post. That's probably the quickest way to get to me, and we can go back and forth. We can debate. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me and that you're passionate about whatever we're talking about. So I appreciate it. Until next time, much love.